So let's talk about weightlifting and vegan dieting, and if it's any different to regular weightlifting by people that eat meat on a regular basis, animal-based products. Truth is that there's no difference. The reason being is because, whether you're weightlifting as a meat eater or as a vegan, the principles of building muscle and lifting weights are no different. However, there are a few considerations that you need to keep in mind, and that is, as somebody who eats meat, for example, you would usually have a pre-workout and a post-workout meal of some type. And so usually for somebody who consumes meat or animal-based products, we'll usually have, a steak or chicken or seafood or something like that along those lines within 1 or 2 or 3 hours before their weight training session. Or they'll have some kind of whey protein or casein protein within about 30 minutes of their training session. And then their post-workout will either be, chicken, beef, seafood, or whey or casein, right, as a post-workout. Whereas as a vegan, you're probably thinking, or if you're looking at becoming vegan and doing some weight training to build a great body, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Then it's like, well, what sort of food should I eat pre and post workout? What whole food should I have? Or what powder should I have? What plant-based powder should I have pre and post workout? The principles are pretty much the same. So when it comes to pre-workout nutrition, before you go into the gym and lift weights as a vegan, you should get a certain amount of protein and carbohydrate into you before you go to the gym and train. And so that can be in the form of a plant-based protein powder. So it could be that you have, a certain amount of pea protein or a certain amount of rice protein powder. Now, I'll give you a rule of thumb. It's going to be the same rule of thumb that applies to people that eat meat or on an animal-based product diet before they go to the gym. And I have a really simple rule. I call it 30-30-30, which is 30 grams of protein with 30 grams of carbohydrate within 30 minutes of your training session. So that 30 grams of protein can come from rice protein, it can come from pea protein. Now, this is what I did when I was lifting as a vegan. I was doing the same thing. So 30 grams of protein from pea or rice with 30 grams of carbohydrate, your choice, usually high GI carbohydrate, within 30 minutes of your training session. Now, there are some things I'll mention right now, and that is you don't have to have a carbohydrate as your part of your pre-workout. You can just have a shot of coffee or caffeine. If you're not caffeine sensitive, you can have caffeine as your pre-workout. It's completely up to you. But you should have, and I highly recommend that you have some kind of protein before you go and train in the gym. The reason being is because when you're lifting weights in the gym, without any kind of protein in your bloodstream, so any kind of amino acids in your bloodstream, your muscles will break down, you will go catabolic, and so you are creating a situation for yourself where you will lose more muscle than what you'll gain. That's a real problem. And so as a vegan, it's already challenging enough to get enough protein and to build muscle because there's a little bit more thought required. But you don't want to accentuate that problem by not having protein before your training session. So, highly recommend that you get about 30 grams of protein pre-workout in the form of pea protein or rice protein, or you can even combine them together and have both your pea and your rice protein together in a shake with some kind of carbohydrate, but it's up to you. You don't have to have the carbohydrate within 30 minutes of your training session. Okay? Do you need to have a protein powder before you start your training session? The answer is no. If in the last 1 or 2 hours, you've had a whole food form of plant-based protein before your training session. So remember, we talked about that list before, where I gave you a list of possible whole food forms of plant-based protein to choose from, you can, if you have in the last 1 to 2 hours, have had the equivalent of about 30 grams of whatever you've picked from that list in the form of protein, then you don't need to have anything immediately before your weight training session as a vegan. You don't. Post-workout, let's talk about post-workout. So, rule of thumb is 30 grams, I've been using this for years, 30 grams of protein with 50 grams of carb, between 50 to 70 grams of carb, within 30 minutes of finishing your training session. So again, 30 grams of carb can be in the form of pea, rice protein combined. Look, you can even have hemp, you can even have soy protein if you want, pre and post workout. It's up to you, but we talked about soy protein in other videos. But if you choose to have soy protein as your pre and post workout, I'm not going to stop you. And it's probably not going to hurt you. But if your entire diet is based on soy, then it may be counterproductive for what you're trying to achieve. And we talked about that in the other video where we talked about soy products and the feminizing effects it can have for men, right? But if you choose to have soy or hemp, even though hemp doesn't absorb very well, that's completely your choice. But I'm just saying, if it was me, I would totally have brown rice protein with pea protein, or even separate, it's fine, as a pre or post workout, if it was me. And then you'll have that with carbohydrate post workout. So 50 grams of high glycemic index carbohydrates as your post workout, within about 30 minutes to an hour of finishing your training session. So that's pretty much it when it comes to pre and post workout nutrition for a vegan lifter. Okay, it doesn't really change much compared to someone who's consuming animal-based products and lifting weights. Now, in terms of like how to build muscle as a vegan, it's the same principles and concepts that apply for someone who eats meat. Exactly the same. So I'm not going to go through all of the principles of weightlifting in this series, in this video, because I'll just be doubling up and going over things I've already talked about. So what I suggest you do is go and check out, I have a series called Ultimate Body 2.0. It's a complete video series. If you go to the training section of that series, I talk about deadlifting, bench press, all that kind of stuff. I talk about, training plans and cardio and whatever. I talk about all that kind of stuff in that video series called Ultimate Body 2.0. So what I'll do, I'll flash it up on your screen. If it's not up on your screen, it's on my website. So you have to go to my website. I'll throw my contact details up on your screen right now. You'll have to go there, and it's called Ultimate Body 2.0. But specifically, you'll need to go to the training section of that course. I talk all about the training aspect of building muscle, and so that's equally important, because remember, it's not just about eating a bunch of protein and expect to put on muscle. If you're a lady watching this, you can't just expect to get all of your protein, eat, quinoa and rice cups, every day and expect to build muscle. It just doesn't work like that. You need to go to the gym, or you need to go somewhere, and you need to overload your muscles. You need to lift heavy weights on a regular basis. And, usually twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week. Give yourself 1 day off every week of lifting. But just generally speaking, you want to be lifting heavy weights, and you want to be doing it consistently, and you want to have some structure to your training so that you are consistently incorporating heavy compound movements. So you're doing exercises where you're using multiple muscle groups simultaneously. So you're doing the lunge, like lunges, you're doing deadlifting, squats, overhead press, bench press. There are many different exercises which are compound in nature, and compound, as I've mentioned, compound exercises really just means you're using multiple muscle groups simultaneously, and then you do that consistently. You have some structure around that. You're getting plenty of rest. So you have 1 day off a week of rest. I'm kind of just summarizing the training section of Ultimate Body 2.0. I'll go into a lot more detail. You should go and check it out. You should get maximum value from it. Go and check it out. Get 1 day off of rest every week. train 3 to 6 days a week, whatever works from your lifestyle. 3 days is completely fine. 6 days is completely fine. It just means for 6 days you can break down and train more. You can train your muscle groups more individually. Whereas if you do a 3-day-a-week program, then you're training more muscles simultaneously. It's a lot more effort, yada, 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 yada. And so there's more to it than that. But go and check out Ultimate Body 2.0 and I'll talk more about training over there. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Make sure that you do keep your pre and post workout nutrition requirements in mind if you're looking at lifting weights. It's absolutely essential that you do give consideration at least when you're constructing your meal plan with your spreadsheet, that you do consider getting a certain amount of protein, carbohydrate before and after your training session. And so you'll design your meal plan around 30 grams of protein, 30 grams of carb. And I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot to think about, but just take it piece by piece. Don't rush this. Don't try and learn everything overnight. It's taken me years to figure this out. If you want the science on why 30 grams and whatever, I talk all about that science in my whey protein course. I have a whey protein course that talks about, how much protein you need and why you need so much protein. Not just whey protein, but other types of protein as well. Protein or nutrient timing. So everything I say is backed in science. I don't just make this stuff up. And, years of trial and error and practice and eventually getting it right. And so right now I'm a fitness model competitor. So this is what I do. I'm not a fitness model competitor full time, but as I film this right now, I won my first ever fitness model competition only actually 3 weeks ago. And I'm getting ready for my next fitness competition. And I'm flying overseas to compete overseas for the world titles. So I know what I'm talking about, and I'm very passionate about this. And so that's why I make myself available. I don't cover everything in every single detail, but if there's anything you're not sure of, please send me a message. Before you write any reviews about any courses I teach or whatever, just send me a message first. And if you want something included, I'll do a video on it. There's just so many different things, but I'm just covering off the big pieces, of the puzzle. But if everybody has their own circumstances and things like that, please send me a message. Tell me what your circumstances are. I've been in many different circumstances and I've worked with lots of different people. So I'll throw my contact details up once again. If you have any questions, hit me up. Otherwise, get to work and enjoy the rest of the series. Go and check out Ultimate Body 2.0 and I go into more detail on weight training over there. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you very shortly.